Good afternoon. I'm joined here today by Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Kristen Clark. Today we are announcing that the Justice Department is opening an investigation into the City of Phoenix and the Phoenix Police Department. The investigation will determine whether the Phoenix Police Department engages in a pattern or practice of violations of the Constitution or federal law. This is the third pattern or practice investigation I have announced as Attorney General. Each time, I have noted that these investigations aim to promote transparency and accountability. This increases public trust, which in turn increases public safety. We know that law enforcement shares these goals. The Justice Department has briefed Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego and Police Chief Jerry Williams about the investigation. We are pleased by their pledge of support. They too recognize that we share common aims. Our investigation in Phoenix will be led by the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. It is based on the division's extensive review of publicly available information, and it will consider several issues. First, whether the Phoenix Police Department uses excessive force in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Second, whether the Phoenix Police Department engages in discriminatory policing practices that violate the Constitution and federal law. Third, whether the department violates the First Amendment by retaliating against individuals who are engaged in protected expressive activities. Fourth, whether the city and its police department respond to people with disabilities in a manner that violates the Americans with Disabilities Act. This includes whether decisions to criminally detain individuals with behavioral health disabilities are proper. And fifth, whether the Phoenix Police Department violates the rights of individuals experiencing homelessness by seizing and disposing of their belongings in a manner that violates the Constitution. Those last two areas of investigative focus speak to an important issue that is broader than the Phoenix investigation. Our society is straining the policing profession by turning to law enforcement to address a wide array of social problems. Too often, we ask law enforcement officers to be the first and last option for addressing issues that should not be handled by our criminal justice system. This makes police officers' jobs more difficult, increases unnecessary confrontations with law enforcement, and hinders public safety. This past week, there has been much attention to the impending risk of mass evictions, which would put millions of tenants at risk of losing shelter. Needless to say, the impact on individuals and families would be devastating, and as the CDC has made clear, the impact on public health would likewise be devastating, fueling the spread of COVID-19 infections in the affected communities. Associate Attorney General Vanita Gupta is leading a Justice Department effort with state court leaders on this problem. On June 24th, she sent a letter to state courts urging them to implement eviction diversion strategies that will increase the chances that families can stay in their homes. Mass evictions would also have serious implications for law enforcement, adding to a crisis of homelessness that strains but cannot be solved by the criminal justice system. The ramifications do not end there. Far too often, police officers are the first ones called when someone is experiencing a mental health crisis in any setting. But it is almost certain that police will be called to respond to someone experiencing a mental health crisis if that person is also without housing. And as we have repeatedly seen, the risks to everyone involved in such interactions are enormous. These issues must be addressed if we are to ease the burdens that our society places on law enforcement and ensure the safety of our communities. The Justice Department, through grant-making, technical assistance, and training, supports law enforcement and community-based programs to tackle these challenges. I will now turn the podium over to Assistant Attorney General Clark, who will talk more about our pattern or practice investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Protecting the rule of law demands that those who enforce our laws also abide by them. Ensuring that law enforcement acts in a lawful and accountable manner is a priority for the Civil Rights Division. As the Attorney General has just announced, following an extensive review of publicly available information regarding the Phoenix Police Department, today we are opening a civil pattern or practice investigation into the City of Phoenix and the Phoenix Police Department. We have reviewed court files, media reports, citizen complaints, and we also considered factors that we ordinarily weigh in determining whether to open an investigation, including the nature and seriousness of the allegations, the number of allegations, the steps that a department may be taking to address the allegations, and the history of the department. We found that the evidence here warrants a full investigation, but we approach this process with no predispositions or pre-drawn conclusions. Our pattern or practice investigations have been successful at identifying not only whether systemic misconduct is occurring, but also its root causes, so that those root causes can ultimately be fixed. As part of our investigation in Phoenix, we will meet with officers and command staff, as well as members of the broader Phoenix community. We will review incident reports, body-worn camera footage, and other data and documentation collected by the department. We will also review the department's policies, training materials, and supervision records, as well as documents related to systems of accountability, including how complaints are investigated and how discipline is imposed. As you know, about 3 months ago, we launched similar investigations into the City of Minneapolis and the Minneapolis Police Department, as well as the City of Louisville and the Louisville Police Department. In both cities, as in Phoenix, we've been fortunate to have the support of city officials and police chiefs. In that short time, Justice Department lawyers have had in-person and virtual meetings with close to 1,000 community stakeholders in Minneapolis and Louisville. Hundreds more have submitted messages to the Justice Department. Department lawyers have participated in over 50 ride-alongs with officers. We have had 4 meetings with full command staff and spoken to officers across both individual interviews and roll call briefings. We will take the same approach in Phoenix. Our career attorneys have decades of experience working on investigations like the one we open here today. One thing we have learned over the decades is that we must and will work collaboratively with the Phoenix community and with the Phoenix Police Department. If we conclude that there are no systemic violations of constitutional or federal statutory rights by the city or Phoenix Police Department, we will make that known. If, on the other hand, we conclude that there is reasonable cause to believe that such violations are occurring, we will issue a report describing our findings and then aim to work cooperatively with the city to reach agreement on the best remedies. If an appropriate remedy cannot be achieved through agreement, the Attorney General is authorized to bring litigation to secure an appropriate injunctive remedy. This morning, our team had the opportunity to speak with city officials about our investigation. We are pleased that Mayor Gallego and Chief Williams have pledged their full support. I will repeat the same message our team conveyed to city officials and city leaders this morning. We're committed to following the facts where they lead and doing so in a timely manner so that we can expeditiously address any pattern or practice of unlawful conduct that may be identified. We look forward to working together with the city and the Phoenix Police Department toward the shared goals of ensuring
All right, it does look like officials have come to the podium here in Phoenix, Arizona to update us and respond to the Department of Justice's investigation announced today. Let's listen in.
As well as City Manager Ed Zucker. As you know, the Department of Justice announced its investigation into the pattern of practices of the Phoenix Police Department, and today we're just going to talk to you a little bit about that statement. So I've been with law enforcement for 32 years. The majority of that I've spent in this city of Phoenix, raising my 2 sons. Everyone knows I love this city, and I'm committed to leading our department and protecting and serving all people with dignity and respect. Our community deserves it, and I nor my team will not settle for anything less. The Department of Justice inquiry is another opportunity to further improve the department and to better serve our city. Wearing the badge is a privilege, not a right. Let me say that again. Wearing this badge is a privilege, not a right. The majority of our officers out there act every day with professionalism and compassion. We've said this before. We welcome an outside assessment before, and we'll welcome this one with open arms. What it will do, it will lead to a better police department. It will lead to the opportunity for us to better and serve you. We are looking forward to seeing what we're doing right. We're also looking forward to what we can improve on. I've said this before as well. Public trust is essential for effective policing, and accountability is a big component of that trust. Since last summer, some of the reforms included meeting not only the mandatory 2 requirements of the executive order on safe policing for communities, we met the 12 discretionary elements as well. Under the direction of Mayor Kate Gallego, we met all the requirements for the national referendum 8 Can't Wait campaign. It was echoed by Attorney General Merrick Garland that this uniform is not always the right one to respond to calls for service. And when we get those calls, we will continue to respond until we have the opportunity to send other resources at a later date. Our police department, like any other entity on the face of the planet, always has room for improvement. We embrace that, we welcome that, and we accept that responsibility. With that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to City Manager Ed Zuercher.
Thank you, Chief. I'm City Manager Ed Zuercher. As the Chief mentioned this morning, U.S. Department of Justice announced their review of the Phoenix Police Department. It's been my commitment as City Manager that we at the City of Phoenix will embrace any opportunity for reform and improvement. Under the direction of the Mayor and City Council, we have sought out independent assessments of the Phoenix Police Department over the last several years, including a comprehensive report by the National Police Foundation in 2019, and the assessment that's currently underway by our independent contracted agent, 21CP Solutions, into department training and tactics. We've reformed many of our policies, including, as the Chief said, joining the National 8 Can't Wait program to reform our use of force policies. And as I told the Department of Justice staff this morning in the meeting, we look forward to taking this step with the Department of Justice and will fully cooperate with any requests they make of the city or the Phoenix Police Department. I want to talk for just a second about one of the key elements from Attorney General Garland's news conference today. He spoke of challenges in cities across the country where police, by default, end up as the primary responders for those experiencing a mental or behavioral health crisis or homelessness. It is always our responsibility to treat people well with dignity and respect. And this cannot be solely a police responsibility. That's why it was so important that the City Council and the Mayor set aside in this year's budget $15 million in a new budget for the Community Assistance Program, where we will have specially trained experts who provide services to those in crisis. That program will be developed over the next 12 months. These types of reforms are what will make our police department and our community stronger. I want to say I believe in the men and women of the Phoenix Police Department who commit their lives to protecting the community. I know that good officers do not want to work in a system that allows bad practices. And our community expects and deserves a high-quality police department with officers committed to justice, fairness, and respect. We will continue to hold that as a standard that we measure our police department, our police chief, and our police officers against. The Department of Justice investigation will provide one more avenue toward making Phoenix a safer, stronger place for all residents, workers, visitors, and our police department. I'm confident in the leadership of Chief Jerry Williams. The Phoenix Police Department can and will continue to do better for the residents of Phoenix. At this point, we will take questions you might have.
So this is the third program that's kind of being launched under the Biden administration. So Phoenix PD joins two other law enforcement agencies, one of them behind the death of George Floyd, another behind the death of Breonna Taylor. Where do you feel like your department measures up against agencies that have been the center of such high-profile force incidents?
So I think I mentioned it in my comments before. Any police department, any entity has room for improvement. Mine is no different. I will say this, I'm confident in our ability to police. I'm confident in our ability to engage and embrace what the DOJ is looking for in their pattern and practice review. But I'm also confident that at the end of the day, if they tell us to do some things differently, we will fully embrace that and work towards that end.
What do you tell your officers today? What do you tell them?
I tell them to continue to do the amazing work that they do day in and day out, taking over 1 million calls for service, putting on a uniform, working at the crime lab. Continue to do what they do, and we'll work through this process together.
Chief, you mentioned, like, there's a lot of things I've said before. I've said this before. With this latest investigation, what actually will change moving forward?
So that I love that question from anyone from the media. So it's always asked, hey, what are you doing to reform? We've reformed this police department from top to bottom since the time that I've been here. We have numerous reforms, and we'll make sure we push out that information to the media later so that you will have it. But I think it's important to say that we're reinforcing our commitment to that trust. When I say that I've said it before, I am reinforcing the commitment to leadership. The commitment, as the city manager said, to justice, to fairness, to equity. We're just reinforcing that, and this is just another opportunity to have that
I
happen.
mean, in light of that DOJ announcing this investigation, do you think that all the reinforcement that you've done so far is enough at this point?
So there's always room for improvement, which is why the Department of Justice is coming in, looking at our patterns and practices. And as the city manager said, we're going to fully embrace that. And I'm confident in a lot of the things that we've done here that haven't been done in other parts of the country. So I'm looking forward to them seeing what we've done right and also what we can improve on. Thank you.
Chief, I want to ask you real quick. You mentioned, I think the phrase was, officers act every day with professionalism and compassion, and the city manager said our goal is to always treat people with dignity and respect. When people are going to hear what the Attorney General said today and say, he's mentioning throwing out, the stuff of homeless residents, men and women experiencing that, excessive force violations, police practices that violate the Constitution, I mean, on, and they're going to say that does not gel with what you're saying, which is your officers act a certain way. What do you think the DOJ is going to find, and how do you tell the public to reconcile those two differences?
So what I think the DOJ is going to find is that we've made a lot of improvements in our policies, procedures, and practices. I think what the DOJ is going to find is that we implemented body-worn cameras. I think what the DOJ is going to find, all the reform efforts we've made in the last year. What do we tell the public? We're committed to getting better. What do we tell the public? We're not afraid to embrace anyone coming in making an outside assessment of our agency. And wherever the gaps are, we'll figure those gaps out and we'll become a better police department.
What does it say that the DOJ, after all those reforms, is still coming in? They know what you've done, and they're still saying, we think we need to go camp out in Phoenix and do a deep dive investigation into your department.
We embrace it, we welcome it.
Were you surprised by the DOJ showing up in the city of Phoenix today, talking to you and saying, hey, we're going to do this?
So we found out last night that they were coming, and we embraced it, and we were fully aware that they were coming here. And I thought we had, boss, a great meeting with them. We were able to ask some questions and comments, and they shared with us what they were going to do. So it wasn't a surprise. We were fully embracing of it.
And was this an indictment of the Department of the Phoenix Police Department?
I'm sorry.
Is this investigation an indictment of Phoenix Police?
I don't look at it as an indictment. I look at it as an opportunity for us to share and show what we do, and the opportunity for an outside independent entity, because I mentioned that very deeply this morning, the outside entity to look at what we're doing and to share and show what we do and to learn from what we don't.
One more question. What do you know about what this review is going to look like? Is this going to be investigators overseeing police officers doing their work?
So based on the limited information we were showed with today, so they're not going to come hang out and live in Phoenix. They're going to make intermittent trips with Phoenix. They're going to talk to community members. They're going to speak with and talk to our command team. They're going to ask for policies, procedures, and practices. What that report looks like in the end, none of us will know until we get it, but our commitment is that we're going to work very closely with them and provide them any and all things that they need. So
Quick follow-up, how long do you think they'll be here? Are you thinking 6 months, 2 years? Any indication?
So they didn't give us an exact date, maybe a little bit over a year.